Okay, so first of all, suppose this is my OpenAI account. We need to understand how to create an API key. So maybe once you logged in, you can just go there, create a new API key. You can create this Y and then it will show you an OpenAI key. You need to make sure you save it properly. So that's your first step. Another thing is you go to your profile this way, settings, and then you go to the limits. So what happens is suppose you have a new OpenAI account. By default you are set to the free tier. And what is the free tier? We go to this rate limit guide there and then we see here. So if you are on free tier, you can have only 3 requests per minute. So whenever you have our app access or any other app which is creating content from OpenAI key, you need to make sure you are on minimum of tier 1. If your users are higher, you add more funds over the period of time, you will be on higher tier, but minimum it is mandatory, you should be tier 1. Now we go back to the settings and go to the limit. In my case, my tier is 3. If I scroll down, system is telling me to get to the next tier, I need to spend $250 since account creation, and my account is already 14-day old. So once I spend just $250, I would be tier 4. Tier 1 is minimum. Okay, so how you know your tier? You go to the settings, you go to the limit, you see here, if you see a free tier, then you go to the billing, you add more funds, minimum $10, $20. I would not suggest you add $100, $200. No, at a time you just add $10, $20, $50 based on your usage. In a start, when you have a new account, you should add $10, $20 somewhere. That would give you at least a minimum tier 1. So you go to the limits and suppose you added some funds and you go to the limit after adding the fund and your users tier is still free. That may be something you need to check with the help, and you need to connect with them, OpenAI, in their accounts of payment and billing, and you need to tell them that you have already added the fund and your account is still in free tier. So I have seen cases where customer have added funds but their account is still in free tier, and then they have 3 requests per minute and then our app doesn't work. I tell them from the logs, if it is about the limits, then if you have added the fund and your tier is not increased to at least tier 1, then you should go to the help and connect them. So what I'm trying to explain here is you should be at least tier 1 or 2 or something, but not the free tier. And if you have added the fund and your account is still in free tier, you should connect with their help. It is most important that when we are using these third-party API key, we understand this entire process, how it works. We also understand how the free tier is very limited and doesn't work with any app. It's not just about our app. It won't work anywhere else. So this is all for now. This video was actually about the limits. So from the limit page, you see the limits. From the scroll down page, you see how you can reach the next tier. In the limit page, if you go to this page, you see what tier you will get when you added how many funds and what are the limits of each tier. Tier 1 or higher is suggested. And one more thing I found which may be working. So one more thing, there is an organization limit and there is a project limit. We are talking here about the organization limit. So these are the thing. This is the thing where you have the users tier. So organization and limit. And one more thing I see is when user get an access, suppose your account is set to tier 1, that allow you a couple of hundred. Suppose like tier 1 allow you, let us go there. So suppose tier 1 allow you 500 requests per minute. If you try to run say like 5 concurrent tasks, we would not recommend that. what I would recommend is, if you are on lower tier, say like tier 1, if you see there is a huge gap, so there is 10 time limit when you go to the tier 3. And how you go to the tier 3? By spending more money, by adding more funds there. And at any time you have any kind of issue that you have added enough fund and your account is yet not updated to that tier, you should connect with their help. All of our app, for the content apps which I have created, they all are having 70 to 200 steps of content generation, mini prompts, content filtering, and so many processes are there. So what is important is you know your tier, and based on that only I would recommend you to increase number of same time content requests in our apps. So suppose like if you are in tier 1, what would be my recommendation is you run 1, 2, 3 or 4 requests at a time for content. If you are on tier 2, I would request you increase by 5 or 10 requests. And one more thing I would suggest is, no matter which tier you are, you should always run 1 request at a time. If that is working well, you getting the content in 5-10 minutes from our app, then you can increase next time 2 runs at the same time. Then you increase gradually to 5, to 7, to 10. What I would not suggest you is you run 20 tasks at the same time. Two-way, it can create a problem. It can overload our system, because there we have certain kind of number of retries also there. Because what happens is every time you run a query, it may be having some issue with the OpenAI server for that particular time being. Then our system retry, rather failing, because if it fails, your entire steps are gone and next time you need to run it again. So to combat this issue, even if there is some kind of limits or some kind of those kind of issue, we do a couple of retries. So what happens is, no matter which tier you are, if you just go for one content, you can actually see the quality of output and timing it taking, then you can gradually increase. But on the other side, if you just run say like 20 runs at the same moment of time or 10 runs same moment of time, without knowing your account can handle 5 requests or 2 requests at the same time, it may create so many issues. You would be having issue that all of my 10 content failed. And another thing is, your time and your API credit can go waste. So what I would recommend you, start with tier 1 minimum, 1 task at a time, then increase it to 2 tasks at a time, then 3 tasks, then 5 tasks, 7 and 10. And also 10 is enough, because you need certain time to even update those content to your website or web page, whatever you want to optimize with our content. So at any case, I would recommend 5 to 10 tasks if you are on higher tier. But for new user, I would always recommend you start with slow. Make sure your account is tier 1. Make sure you try 1 content request at a time to our app, and then gradually increase that. I hope this video helps, because I thought this should be very important that we understand how this tier works and how you can troubleshoot your issue. If you are facing the issue related to the rate limit, then this video was created for the purpose for your better understanding with how OpenAI system works, how their tier system works. And I highly request you just try to revise this video once more in case necessary. I hope this video helped. Thank you very much.